Nope.
All right, we're up and running.
We are.
That's fantastic. Hey, everybody, welcome to the UGA Sports Live podcast. My name is Rodney DeBulsey. I am joined by Jake Roos, Jim Donnan, and Dane Young. And of course, all of you, we're sorry to be going at 12:34 today. But we had Kirby Smart speaking to the media at 12 o'clock, and we figured he's maybe a little bit more important than us. You're probably watching him or listening to the broadcast of this press conference. And we kind of wanted to react to what Kirby said. You know, we didn't want to say, hey, well, maybe Kirby will address this, later on, or maybe he's addressing it right now. So there's no point in actually discussing it prior to no point going head to head with the head man. So we figured we'd listen to the press conference, put up the video of it, get some work done, and then join you guys at 12:30. I know some of you are looking for us at noon, and my apologies, but hey, things change in this wild and wacky world we have. Again, a lot we could talk about. I want to first mention the people who bring this show to you. We're here at Classic City Eats. We have some of the best fried chicken sitting in front of us, and our shout out to Josh and Amy for taking care of us each week when we come in here. And also want to give a big shout out to our friends at Athens Ford. They do fantastic work for all of the UGA fans. And you don't have to be a UGA fan to go there, but it would probably help because I can tell you the folks out there are big Georgia fans, and they have fantastic deals for you. The one I mentioned on our watch along that I want everyone to jump on is if you buy one of their Ford certified pre-owned vehicles. Again, this is a pre-owned vehicle that they take in. They check it out 100 plus different ways and make it feel like it's brand new. I can tell you from personal experience, you'll get one. It feels like you're buying a brand new car, but you're not paying a brand new car price. But it will come with a lifetime powertrain warranty. And if you're worried about how much it's going to cost you, well, you're already saving 30, 40% because you didn't take the new price hit on it or new car hit on it. You don't have to worry about the depreciation. You can finance any of their pre-owned vehicles or certified pre-owned vehicles for 1.49% APR financing for 3 years for qualified buyers. So you get a ridiculous interest rate on it. Fantastic car that feels like new, and a lifetime powertrain warranty. I can't tell you how smart that is. And they are Georgia's #1 Ford certified pre-owned vehicle dealer. So they have hundreds of them on the lot, all different makes and models. Go out there and hit up our friends at Athens Ford. I wish we could get as much service from Georgia's offense as we get from Athens Ford. That would have been very helpful this past Saturday. Coach, we were with you for the watch along. You gave us a lot of your thoughts during the game, as the game progressed, as the game was over. But now that you've had a couple days to think about that Georgia-Alabama game, where are you at right now with this, what Georgia's doing and what they need to do going forward? They got Kentucky in 2 weeks, then Florida, then schedule gets a little bit easier after that. But a lot of people are down on Georgia football right now after that loss to Alabama.
Well, everybody's got their opinion, and there's reasons for the fact that we didn't finish the game like we wanted to. Alabama won the last 20 minutes. There's no way to look at it except that. I mean, it was a very competitive game to that point. We had our opportunities. First thing that really surprised me was the way they attacked our defense, from not by their game plan, but the way that if anybody told me they'd make 33 first downs and have 400 yards passing and 100 and some yards rushing, I would have thought that would have been hard to do. But you give them credit. He targeted those guys 20 times and they caught 17 of them. So they just lit our secondary up any way you look at it, underneath coverage. So that in itself puts us in a bind because that's the strength of our team. We knew that they were going to score some points, but we did score 24, which was certainly not enough. But I think the big thing for me offensively was just the opportunities missed. Dane and these guys have shown a lot of different tape, but there's no question Alabama's not Alabama of yesteryear on defense, and you're going to see it throughout the year. People are going to attack them. We didn't hit the shots we needed to, and we missed some open receivers, and our running game was a lot better than I thought. Our protection was a lot better than I thought it would be too. And going forward, we just got to assess where we are and realize that, like I said, the first show of the year, this offense is going to be a real kind of a situation where they're going to have to grow. We got some good young players coming along, particularly running back and receivers. So as far as Stetson, I thought he really did some good things, but he certainly made some bad decisions there at the end. The tip passes, lo and behold, I watched Aaron Rodgers throw 2 interceptions the other day. Aaron Rodgers, things like that happen. As far as tip passes, Alabama's not a great pass rushing team anyhow. So they decided when they didn't get any kind of push that they would just stand there and try to knock some balls down, and it worked for them. So I would think going forward, regardless who's playing for us at quarterback, we got to use more rollouts to avoid that. But I see Murray throw the ball down the field against pros. I see Wilson do it. Most of the time, batted balls aren't from your height. It's just because of the lineman where they're standing and where he launched the ball. So as far as what's going to happen with JT Daniels, I think you answered it pretty good yesterday. If he was ready to be our quarterback health-wise, he would have played. He was ready health-wise. If he was ready to system-wise, obviously Kirby and Monken didn't think he was, so he's not the quarterback. But I guarantee he's ready to play as far as being cleared. It's just a question of they think, based on what we've done, that he and I'm talking about Stetson and Dwan give us the best chance to win.
I want to hit on that, Coach, because that was I think you could attest to this yesterday. The number one topic on the dog vent and pretty much everywhere else in the universe was Stetson is too short to throw over the line of offensive linemen. I saw former players going out saying he's too short to throw, and I'm like, wait a minute, you played with guys like Aaron Murray who were not exactly 6'7".
Jake Brown was not a giant.
Yeah, you were there when David Green had 100 balls batted against LSU. And again, I don't know. I never played quarterback. I don't know what it's like to throw, but at the same time, Arkansas didn't bat down any balls. Auburn didn't bat down any. Tennessee didn't. I mean, there's a few that are hit, but sometimes balls are tipped. So, Coach, I know you just said it, but I'm gonna hammer you again. I want to know. You say it's not a height issue, but a lot of people say that's not what I saw with my own 2 eyes. You played the quarterback position. You coached the quarterback position. You know these quarterbacks. So why were there so many batted passes? I mean, it just felt like, how could they predict that many passing lanes, the pass timing? And is there any way for an offensive lineman to do that? I remember being told that, look, if a guy jumps up too many times, you make sure he doesn't jump again. And it was rude, but we made sure the guy didn't jump more than once. So
I just think
expand on that, please.
You got to be able to recognize if a guy's getting double teamed or if he's getting stalemated. Everybody's taught to hold their hands up. But, I don't think it's going to be as big an issue where you get that many. You're going to get some knocked down with any quarterback. But I think in the case of Stetson, to me, a couple of times the other night, he took a little bit too much of a drop a couple of times to ensure maybe seeing down the field better. And when you do that, then you really hurt yourself when you step up because you're not in your normal passing lane. So, there's no way you can justify that many balls, particularly on the swing passes. I mean, we had guys, one knocked down to that was really big to our great back in there and to Cook. And that was in the fourth quarter. But, another thing is our defense against the run was really good until the fourth quarter, and then they were just leaning on the run, and the guy got 76 yards there when the game was pretty much decided. So they're talking about him getting 150 yards, but I thought we did a pretty good job on their counter. We really did a good job with tackling in space. But, our strength's supposed to be the secondary, and we just got torched. I mean, any way you look at it, we didn't even hardly bat any balls down. So that we're talking about batted balls down. I'm talking about we didn't defend any as far as knocking them down. I mean, and then when we really worked close, the guys made spectacular catches. And I will say this, and this doesn't have anything to do with me being right or wrong. I did say my mouth-watering thing this week was how the game was going to be called. And I don't think I could be any more clairvoyant because we didn't get any help on their holding calls on offense. And we certainly didn't get any help on our PIs and defensive interference. So 4 big defensive penalties on us. A couple of them, we grabbed the guy for sure, but the one against Stokes was just really bad, really bad.
Speaking of, I I mentioned the same thing in my 3-2-1 column, saying, "Look," and I basically just stole it from Coach John. So I have to admit on the podcast that I completely stole that. But he made a good point. I thought about it all week. I'm like, Tyler Simmons was on sides. And I know that the thought is when you're losing, blame the refs. But I mean, you had everybody across the nation complaining about some of those calls.
Well, and I think too, it's a situation where, the champion, the guy, the big guy is going to get the calls, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it happens that way more often than not. You see it in the NFL, you see it in the NBA. I mean, I don't think that this is endemic of this game. I think that that's just the nature of refereeing to some degree.
That's true. Coach was talking about scheme and some stuff he saw, especially when the secondary. I thought Dane and Brent did a fantastic job of when their Film Don't Lie series with all the clips. Dane, let me get your overall thoughts on this, because the coach has some really good points about the fact that, I mean, Kirby, the reason we held this back was to hear what Kirby said. Kirby got some passion in his voice in that press conference. When he started talking about 50-50 balls in the secondary, he's like, look, we didn't get them. He said sometimes when you play that press coverage, you're going to get beat. It's a law. It's a fact. You see it in every weekend in the NFL. Georgia pressed some and got beat, as Coach said, talked about the secondary. But he was just flummoxed that it seemed like every 50-50 ball went to Alabama. So Dane, with that in mind, kind of give me your thoughts.
Alabama's got 2 first-round wide receiver, no doubt. And maybe Minchie turns into one later on, I don't know. But when you're talking Devontae Smith, when you're talking Jalen Waddle, no doubt first-round picks. Alabama's got 2 no doubt first-round picks at tackle, Alex Leatherwood and Evan Neal. There's not a defense in the country that's going to stop that. And you may slow it, you may get some mistakes. Not a single one's going to stop that. And that's one reason why Alabama has given up. No team has held Alabama to less than 35 points since Clemson in the national championship game in 2018. So in a lot of cases, Georgia's defense actually played pretty well. The front held up okay. Georgia's defensive line was not quite as disruptive as I think we're used to seeing, especially with the talent that's there. But a lot of that's because Alabama's got a damn good offensive line, the best one that I've seen in college football this season, when you have those tackles.
Going back and looking at some of the film, we saw them bring pressure from a bunch of different places. A lot of corner blitz, a lot of nickel blitzes, trying to get to them, because it worked on the first play. You get to Mac Jones.
But do you realize how crazy it is for a guy Evan Neal size, 6'7", 370, whatever he is, to be able to slide off one guy in the interior and then go catch, I think it was Tyson Campbell one time on the outside before he can get to Mac Jones.
That was my point. I mean, I think when you guys did the breakdown against Tennessee, they pressured Grant Terminal 22 times, 44 times. I mean, just ridiculous amount of 44%, I believe, he was under pressure. I think Georgia got to Alabama 11 times throughout the course of the game, and you gave them the ball 8 minutes longer than Georgia had it. Coach, I want to go back to you real quick. I know you don't like to second guess offensive coordinators, but it felt to me the game plan would have been a little more old school SEC football. Run the ball, control the clock, keep that fantastic Alabama offense on the sideline. If you can get more, you always preach, you got to get more first downs. It seemed to me like Georgia just kind of abandoned the run a bit early. I know that, the passes were there. You showed us how guys were getting open, but it was driving me nuts.
Here's the way I look at it.
Right.
I mean, you had a good plan going in. You thought you knew what you could do. Well, the first half, it generated 24 points.
Yeah.
Second half, we started out and took the ball right down the field, and then had a humongous drop on 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2 to Burton, which was really would have kept the momentum going. Then the next time down, we get the interception after, the ball was tipped, but it's still, the point is at that point, what we were doing looked pretty good. Then all of a sudden they started, like I said, the last 20 minutes, they started rolling and didn't punt again. And so it's hard to feel like that, going in, you didn't know if you could run on them as good as you did starting. So now all of a sudden you're playing from behind, and maybe you're not calling the game as to look to be running the football. So there's a lot of ways you can look at it, but also maybe some of that success we had running because Alabama was playing the pass when they were ahead. So, who knows what that might be. But I do feel like our offensive line is starting to gel. They didn't really pressure the quarterback hardly at all. And we ran the ball effectively, and we've shown some guys now. Cook, the way he looked in the first half, Milton for sure. McIntosh had a little bit of a hurt knee, but certainly White very explosive. But I just think, the overall package going forward is going to be pretty good. Of course, Kentucky's probably better on defense than Alabama, when you look at their defensive front and everything they got. So we'll have to see. I don't know that. I haven't studied them yet, but the one thing that I came out of
unprepared as usual. Unprepared as usual.
One thing that bothered me as much as losing the game like we did was just the fact that not so much bothered, but I know the one thing, Alabama is not a national championship caliber defense. I mean, they're going to have a hard time with the Clemsons and the Ohio States and hopefully Georgia complete, because they just give up way too many easy plays. Not a great tackling team in space. Of course, they didn't have LeBron Ray in the game, but you just don't see those Alabama guys. Nobody did anybody on the three of you get the feeling that Alabama was a dominant defense? Of course, you can say the same thing about our defense, the way we gave up so many big plays. But the bottom line to me, 33 first downs, and we only got them to third down 11 times.
Yeah.
So first and second down, they destroyed us.
Yeah, well, you said last week first downs would be very important in the way this game played out. So, can you get them down? Can you get them behind the chains? And Georgia couldn't do it. That was, everyone talked about the number one offense versus number one defense. Well, that number one offense showed up and played out. And again, if you give them the ball three times, you lost to a South Carolina team last year by turning the ball over three times,
Sure.
Well,
and like Coach said, I think that you're not talking about necessarily a championship caliber defense from Alabama. They made plays, certainly, but I think that a lot of that was probably unforced errors on Georgia's part.
Yeah, that's my point. So I've gotten the question, do you really think Georgia could beat Alabama if they play again? I'm like, absolutely. I mean, hell, you beat them in the first half. It should have been 24-17, and that's after some gifts. And that's with the offense not working as good as it could.
It should have been worse than that.
Yeah,
exactly.
Two tip passes, though, to me, you got to take those out of the mix. I mean, particularly the one that happened on their end of the field. They still just because they intercepted doesn't mean they got to go on down and score with it. I mean,
I made the same point on the board, Coach. I said, look, and again, I'm not banging on Stetson Bennett's 3 interceptions because 2 of them are tipped balls. But the point being, it's a situation where you gave the number one offense 3 extra tries. You denied yourself 3 tries. You gave them 8 minutes more of holding the ball, and you cannot do that. If you give Trevor Lawrence the ball 3 extra times over yourself, who the hell expects to win at that point?
Sure.
Right. I just don't see that happening.
But
so
you don't in a game plan like we talked about getting ready for this game. You talk about what the defense needs to do. We know they're going to score a lot of points. The offense has got to do their share, but the defense, to me, underperformed more than the offense did in this game. Don't you think?
Yeah, you gave up 41 points.
No question.
I mean, this is the number one defense.
And for all you've heard about Stetson Bennett and all the complaining you've heard, all the hand-wringing you've heard about him, I've heard almost nothing from fans when it comes to the defense and the performance that they put on. Yeah. And I do think that, if you're going to be fair about it, there's definitely some blame to be placed there as well.
Yeah, I heard a little bit, a teeny tiny bit about maybe being too aggressive in press coverage. Okay, but again,
but seriously, Roddy, they had 2 touchdowns where we weren't playing press. We ran a corner blitz and didn't get over there in time, and they hit Mitchie. And we ran we were playing man coverage, and we had a switch, and Campbell fell down. They weren't playing press in, so they had 2 plays, 140 yards that we didn't even have a guy on the guy.
So that brings up a perfect example, Dane. It's Stetson Bennett's fault that the ball is tipped. It hits a receiver in the hands. It's tipped. It's intercepted. That's his fault. But it's not Tyson Campbell's fault for falling down.
Well, look, sometimes
not here to blame.
No, I'm just saying it's when there's one narrative going one way, Coach, it just seems to pile on regardless of facts.
I didn't walk away seeing a lot of place for blame, to be quite honest with you. The way that Alabama's offense is moving, and Georgia could have defended better. Yes, I acknowledge that. But Mac Jones is playing some really accurate, like he's throwing the ball accurately right now. And Steve Sarkisian has such good game plan. There's so much motion and movement along that offense because Mac Jones is not mobile. So he's got to identify really quickly, is this zone or is this man? And so Alabama gives him a variety of ways to do that, and then he gets rid of the ball quickly. That's going to be hard to stop. Very, very difficult for anybody. And I just think Sarkisian called a really good game and took advantage of Georgia's mistakes.
Especially when they run RPOs where, you got to play the run and the pass. The other thing that a little bit different, everybody says compare LSU last year to Alabama this year. Well, Jones isn't as mobile as Burrow. And they run a lot more 12, two tight end stuff than what we saw with LSU. So the two tight end helps your power running game. They look to run the ball a lot more than LSU did last year. And it helps your protection because you've got one guy on the edge there. You don't expose both edges like LSU did with their dual formation and trips open and all that. So it helps their linemen out too. But they're certainly in the mix right now, being one of the best offensive teams in the SEC. In several years, if they'll continue to, and they're going to get some stats the next few weeks. The only thing that's going to hurt them probably is their team's going to be on the sideline a lot in the second half, probably.
Well, and Alabama's offense is uniquely qualified that they can hit a big play from anywhere on the field in the passing game, and then when Alabama gets that lead, they can hammer you down with Najee Harris because it is going to be hard to stop that guy for 3 yards or less.
Yeah, he said, yeah, we ran the ball well because we had the lead and we could. And Kirby Smart,
you were in trouble when that started. Yeah. There's just not much of a way to. I mean, you can limit Najee to an extent, but when you've got those big guys up front leaning on you, and his size and his speed,
and he falls for 3 yards.
Exactly.
So at worst, you're looking at 3rd and 1, 3rd and 3. Because they're going to get 6, 7, 8 yards on two carries, unless you get into the backfield, which I don't see it happening.
Say this, Roddy, going back and looking over our notes and talking about game plan and everything, we said several things. Number one, we got to win the kicking game. We won the kicking game. I mean, no question. We missed a field goal. They made both of theirs, but we made one. Our kickoffs were great. Our punt coverage, I mean, they only had a 2-yard return. They had one where they had a block in the back, but we averaged almost 50 yards every time we punted the ball net. That's 5 first downs. We had 140 some yards in return yards on kickoff returns. That's 14 first downs. So we had some unbelievable field position due to our kicking game. Next thing, we said we had to avoid a big mistake. Well, we made several big mistakes, no question, And then the other thing is we got to really do a good job of not getting called for pass interference and things like that. And we had 4 of them. So let me tell you this: how can you win if those things happen?
No, but the good thing is you can fix those things for the next time you see them. It's not a lot of people just want to, and I'll bring up go back to the quarterback thing after our next commercial break, but that's why I'm confident that Georgia can be. I'm not saying Georgia will, but I think Georgia will see him again. And I think you throw out what happened the first time. To me, it feels just like the Auburn game in 2017 when you got boat raced at Auburn, and you saw them in the national championship game. In the SEC title game, they went right down the field and scored, went up 7-0, and didn't score again because Georgia got its stuff together.
Let me ask you one question here, just for the fans here. You think Lane Kiffin's going to fire Matt Corral because he played so great against Alabama and then had 6 picks against Arkansas?
Yeah.
Nature of the beast.
Yeah, it is. Again, you didn't toss Jake Fromm out against after that South Carolina game. So my point is
anything to do with Stetson. It just the whole situation is you win as a team. You win as a team, you lose as a team. And I think
we don't want to do that. We want to blame one guy.
One great thing about an off week, which comes at a good time, regardless of what position, there's going to be a lot of evaluating of where our team is right now and what we need to do the next 6 games.
I know we got a lot of questions, and I'm going to bring that up to you right after.
Is Campbell the answer at Star over Webb? I mean, there's a lot of things you got to ask. Who's going to be the extra receiver? Can Daniel step in and take over the offense? I mean, all of those are questions that any team would look at, whether your record's 4-0, 3-1, 0-4.
Yeah, it'd be nice to get DJ Daniels back too, and to see hopefully Kenny Mack will be healed up. I mean, Kirby Smart confirmed our reporting yesterday that he had a minor knee issue. Good to see Kenny back, but wow, Kieras on the returns. Yeah, doesn't matter who you got back there returning those kicks. That's going to be pretty badass.
I want to talk about
Put a pin in it.
Yeah.
Okay, Georgia does not play this weekend. They were originally scheduled to play Kentucky at 7 o'clock. Now that's been moved back a full week. They will play Kentucky on the 31st, Halloween at noon. So that gives you time to head down to 5 Points in Athens and swing by our friends over at Masada Leather. A lot of great gifts there. Again, that'll be October 24th this weekend. You need to swing by and start getting your gifts before they sell out. They're not going to have thousands of those cool pin bags and hundreds of thousands of pairs of those Birkenstocks. They're going to have high quality handcrafted items that you can't get anywhere else. And so go ahead and get your Christmas gifts, your holiday gifts now. That Churchill bag that looks so sharp, the messenger bag if you want to get somebody a great Christmas present, great holiday present, a great graduation present. We saw a graduation happen the other day for spring. They almost burned down the Tate Center.
You think they'll make a mailbag?
Yeah, yeah, you can get them exactly the mailbag. If you would just, if instead just give them nice gifts instead of trying to burn down the Tate Center. The belts they have, the Birkenstocks, custom sandals, you can get all that at their friends Masada Leather. Everything with a lifetime warranty on it. Irvin's been running that place since 1975. It's in 5 Points. You can't miss it over there by the Royal Peasant and Earth Fair. Also, yesterday, our friends at Academia Brewing Company came out with a new beer, Jake. I think you'll like this. This is the Frontside Rhine Tricks. Okay. Not, take off on Frontside Rhine Tricks. Now, I'm against puns, but they are one of our sponsors, so we'll allow it. They had to postpone it the other day, but this Berliner Weiss Frontside Rhine Tricks is now open. It was now available. It's a watermelon mango brew.
Okay. You have my attention.
That's what I'm saying. It's a Berliner Weiss watermelon mango brew. And they just had their 3-year anniversary. So they've been in business for 3 years, which obviously tells you that people love going out there. For their holiday or for their anniversary, they had poutine. So they brought that back. Shrimp, avocado egg rolls, and that giant butcher's burger that we talked about the other day. So those are not regular menu items. Those were this past weekend. But the point is they have a loyal following of people who love all their new beers, who love their classic beers, because I guess after 3 years you can call some of the ones classics. I mean, I go in there, I'm like, oh, let me have an IQ. I'm just saying, right off the bat. So they've got classics and favorites, and they have new beers all the time. So meet our friends out at Academia. And hey, I mean, it's October. Go by, sit there in Beer Garden. Have your own little Oktoberfest out there.
I promise you, they'll get you taken care of.
They will. Before you get to the questions, I want to go back to something that Kirby Smart said, and Coach Don touched on. It's the number one question we're getting left and right. We want to parse the JT Daniels situation. Kirby said, I think Stetson Bennett's great. He said in the press conference, and he said that he was asked specifically, can you clarify what it means to be cleared? And Kirby Smart said, to be cleared means you can be tackled to the ground. It's a little different for quarterbacks because you don't let those guys get hit in practice, but it did not sound to me like that JT Daniels is limited. So, Coach, I know you said it before, but I want to, if anybody walks away with any kind of idea of what was talked about on the podcast today, can you kind of give us your thoughts on the availability, clarification of where the JT Daniels situation is? I know that it didn't sound like Kirby's going to do any changes, but what does it mean to be cleared versus, oh, he's still not healthy, if that makes sense?
Yeah, the one thing that I want to clarify that I just said, I think I said Campbell at Star instead of Stevenson. If I did, I meant Stevenson and Webb. That was a mistake. I think Campbell's doing a lot of good things, and so is Stevenson. But as far as to me, when you go on a trip and you only got 70 players, unless you're playing a team like Arkansas, and nothing against Arkansas, but sometimes you take some guys along for the ride a little bit, And but this last game, we only took 3 quarterbacks. We didn't take Beck. So I have to think that if we needed Daniels and wanted to play him, he could have played. So that in itself shows me that he's been cleared enough to play. You wouldn't take 2 quarterbacks and a guy that can't play. So I don't think it's fair to Daniels or Mathis or Beck or anybody, for people like us, for people on your site, for anybody to speculate who should be playing and who shouldn't. That's why you got the coaches. That's why you got everybody, and they're basing it on what gives them the best chance to win. You don't think Kirby Smart wanted that game more than any game he's ever played, probably the other night going against Nick Saban and having a chance to beat him on his own field. So if he's going to play the guy that he thinks gives you the best chance to win based on who his supporting cast is. Now, if we had Alabama's offensive line and we had all those guys back from last year, maybe Daniels is the guy. I haven't seen him throw one pass here. I don't know. But, I just feel like I have seen Stetson, I have seen Dwan, and both of them are good enough to win with. I'm looking forward to seeing what Daniels is all about. But I think people are pie in the sky saying, why isn't Kirby playing him? Kirby's going to play and Monken's going to play. Who gives you the best chance to win? I mean, come on. Why wouldn't he?
Well, but you asked the exact question, Coach, and I think that's why people are so, I don't want to say confused, but so enamored, focused on JT Daniels' health situation, because they're like, who gives you the better chance? Well, JT Daniels was ranked a 5-star. He's only behind Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. Stetson came in as a non-scholarship 2-star. Now he's won you 3 games and then had a bad outing against him. So obviously maybe the 5-star is better. And he didn't come here to not play. So what's the only reason? Well, it can't be that the two of them went into practice, both threw balls, and Kirby Smart chose Stetson Bennett.
Yeah, I mean,
there has to be something holding JT Daniels back, and that just seems to be the number one thing. And then Kirby says, well, it's clear. But then we also hear, well, maybe he might not have as much mobility as somebody else. So I guess the focus is it just a situation where Kirby looked at a healthy JT Daniels and a healthy Stetson Bennett and said, yeah, Stetson gives me the better chance to win.
And you got Dwan there who won the job.
He's healthy, yeah.
They had first two quarters weren't great, but I go back to Cam Newton at Alabama, at Auburn, when they were playing early, when he enrolled there in the state of Alabama. They didn't even announce him till like 2 days before the first game, because they kept saying, hey, he hadn't done that much in practice. Well, maybe he had or maybe he hadn't, who knows. But the only thing I'll say is that's why you got closed practices now. And people don't know, the unknown is something everybody loves to jack around. That's for sure. And
that's the problem, is where we get from people who supposedly know somebody inside the program. We're hearing 2 different things. So that's what's driving us crazy. Dane, give me your thoughts real quick.
You haven't heard anything about him not being cleared, though. He's cleared.
Now, we've heard that he's cleared, but still doesn't move as well as they would like him to.
Well, that's not going to change.
Well, I'm just saying to me, but then they're like, well, then to most people, or to some people, then if he can't move like he needs to, then he may be cleared technically, but not in reality.
The question I got on Saturday night was, if he's not healthy and he's not really a full go, why is he there? Why did he travel? And why is he dressed out? That was the
Kirby's
question.
telling you he is healthy.
Because he was healthy. He could play.
That's the only point I'm trying to get across, and I just wanted clarity from.
Was he a dual threat quarterback coming out of high school? He was never known for his running. He's not going to be that. I'm not arguing with you. I'm talking about he's that's not his forte. He's got a good arm. I've watched the tape, but.
So Dane, Coach makes a good point. He's a pocket passer, but you've broken it down, and there are times where you've shown us that, hey, maybe rolling out again. Everyone says roll them out, and I thought that Trent made a good point in our group chat the other day. Trent's like, yeah, you roll them out, but you kind of lose half the field when you do that. Give me your thoughts, Dane.
I think a lot of fans are blinded by some recruiting stars right now, because if you separate that and you just look at what I understand, that's the business that we're in. I get that 100%. But if you look at the data that is there, The stuff that's on their resumes. I've got it over on the dog vent right now where I did the blind resume thing where one of the quarterbacks is JT Daniels, one is Stetson Bennett, one's Jake Fromm, one is Justin Fields. I can tell you which one's the best among their career resumes. But if you look at Stetson's and JT Daniels, almost exactly the same. About the same completion percentage, 60%, just over a touchdown per game. The primary difference is that if you include the sack numbers lost, because unfortunately that goes into rushing stats for quarterbacks. So the numbers lost in sacks, JT Daniels' career, minus 155 yards rushing. Stetson Bennett, 51 total yards rushing. So if Todd Monken wants to get his quarterback out of the pocket and be able to save on some of these plays for a young offense that's developing, then yeah, Stetson Bennett or Dwan Mathis are probably going to be better served to do that than JT Daniels. And plus, JT Daniels is a turnover risk. 1 interception per 36 attempts, almost the same as Stetson Bennett. 1 interception per 38 attempts. And, people want to hate on Jake Fromm last year. Jake Fromm, 1 interception per 55 attempts in his career. Justin Fields is a whole different level, 1 per 118. So when you start getting quarterback accuracy
that was
here,
unnecessary.
Hey, where's the salt that we can rub in the wound here?
All I'm saying is I think fans are looking for a savior at the quarterback position. From what we've seen in the past, and again, we don't get to see practices like these coaches do. I'd imagine if JT was that savior, he'd have played already. But what I've seen, I don't think that that's there for this offense this year. I don't think that savior's in that quarterback room. And if they emerge and I eat those words, then hallelujah, I guess.
Yeah, we gotta win with balanced attack. We really look good with a couple of those RPOs where we faked up in there. One time he ran on the corner and he should have kept running and he threw the ball. First play of the game, little play action rollout. A little bit more of that, but it goes back to Monken likes to drop back too. I mean, Brent Rollins has gone over that in his Pro Football Focus talks. That's part of his MO. So maybe he's going to have to adjust a little bit more with Stetson, maybe a few more rollouts, maybe a lot less passing and more running. Who knows? But play around your defense. But going in that game, if you're the offensive coordinator, you're thinking, we got to score 35 points against these guys if our defense plays good. So you take a few more risks against a team like that than you would against Kentucky or Tennessee or people like that. We're not going to win going away like Alabama because the explosive power they have. We're going to win this year with good defense, good kicking, power running game, play action pass, and a quarterback that doesn't turn the ball over.
That's very fair. I know we got a bunch of questions. We're going to have to go through those rapid fire because they're building up as I yammer on too long. But I do want to give a big shout out to our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors, Ryan Lucia and the folks over there. I know Ryan was frustrated with the loss, and then the Braves kind of kicked him down even further, and I know he was just broken up about it. But big shout out to Ryan Lucia and friends at Aaron Overhead Doors who have expanded their service area thanks to advertising on UGASports.com. That's the only reason. That has nothing to do with the fact that they have incredible customer service. They get 5-star ratings from everybody they deal with. They're voted best of Gwinnett, and they get all these accolades within the industry and from all the service, Ask Angie and all that type of stuff. Everybody who rates and Yelp reviews and all Google reviews are all 5-star. Now it's simply for advertising on UGASports.com. That is the number one reason why they're expanded their service area, bought a new building, are doing so much more in commercial. Now they're covering so much of Gwinnett County, Cobb County, DeKalb County, Barrow County, Stevens, Jackson, Habersham, Dawson, Hall, North Fulton, Forsyth, White, Oconee, Clark, Walton, Cherokee. I feel like the lady on Romper Room looking into the mirror, and I see Walton County, and I see Cherokee County, and oh, look, Hall. So shout out to our friends at Aaron Overhead Doors. Reach out to them. If you go to their website, you can actually tell them what time you'd like them to come out, and they don't charge you for that. And if you tell them you're a Georgia fan, you get 10% off. And speaking of Georgia fans, we have the folks over at Your Pie, the founders, Drew and Natalie French, huge Georgia fans. And I know Drew was right there with all the other Georgia fans, just wringing his hands every time there was an interception, and just wanted to throw his visor, throw his hat, because it hurts Drew when Georgia loses. I'll tell you that for a fact. I've seen it up front. But what won't hurt you is to try their new hot honey pepperoni pizza. It's a fantastic looking pizza. You pick your crust. They put marinara on it, pepperoni, pepperdew peppers, house pickled jalapenos, feta, mozzarella, fresh basil, and then they drizzle it with Mike's Hot Honey. If you've not tried the Mike's Hot Honey, that is amazing stuff. They'll put it on anything you ask them to. But hit up our friends at Your Pie. They even have a sweet heat pepper pasta that you should try out. So hit them up as well and try it. There's well over 50 locations of Your Pies that are all over the place. And everyone you go to, it's incredibly fast. You walk in, tell them what you want. They make it. By the time you got your drink set down, 2 minutes later, they bring you a pizza they just cooked in those incredible ovens. So hit them up. Questions?
All right. I do want to get into some questions, but first off, did want to share a little bit of the disappointing news. Just came across the wire. No All-American Bowl this year in San Antonio. Really sad about that. One of my favorite events of the year.
Yeah.
Georgia had a lot of kids they were sending as usual. So shout out to San Antonio. If you're in the area, go support San Antonio. Show them some love around New Year's because they're going to be missing my bar tabs.
I was about to say the economy of San Antonio may collapse.
I agree.
The tamale market will be destroyed.
No question about it. Also, too,
There'll be a tamale surplus.
in the
rotting in the
recruiting
streets.
vein, while we're here, huge pickup for Georgia last week. Seals the deal with Amarius Mims. Got down to speak to him and Von Lassiter, his head coach down there. People forget, I think, sometimes that Amarius Mims' head coach was also Jake Fromm's head coach and also Trey Hill's head coach. So he's a guy who's really familiar with the program at Georgia. I encourage people to go read his comments. I thought his coach's corner was very interesting, very telling about the job Georgia did recruiting Amarius. You got to feel encouraged, I think, by what he said.
Share that with your friends that complain about Georgia landing recruits, and that give your Auburn friend.
Along those lines too, I got a text from Jake that he's hearing that we might be getting another guy. Tell us about it, Jake.
Yeah. Xavier Sori comes out today and says he's close to committing.
So you're going to tell Coach before you tell me.
Wow. I got to take care of those who take care of me, right? Four-star.
Next time he signs your check, you let me know.
Four-star linebacker out of IMG Academy. Big-time Georgia target. He was there for the that big visit weekend in late August with Mason Smith and Corey Foreman. This is a guy that did really
Mims
heavily
and
after
Brock.
Mims, Lavassier Carroll, who you owe a big debt of gratitude
That's why I was
to,
bringing it up.
and Marlon Dean, because those guys are sitting down there in Bradenton being like, hey, man, it's time to make it happen. Let's go.
So you got two commits at IMG right now, trying to push a third guy.
Yeah, and, I like their chances. I think that Georgia sits well right there. So be interesting to see when that one goes down. Also, might be a little more news coming here soon. I don't
Hate when you do this.
just stay tuned is what I'll say this week.
What if I go out of town? Can we make it happen? Because
Yeah,
I'll take a vacation
I bet you
for
will.
the team.
I bet you will.
For the team, I will take a vacation just to help out.
Yeah. Anyway, if you missed anything that we did on Amarius Mims last week, go check it out. We had tons of coverage.
Nine different articles.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. All right. Been a lot of talk about the refs. Let's dive into these questions. Coach, this one from Old Fourth Dog. He wants to know, I love how he phrased it. He said, curious, what did Coach do when his team got hosed by the officials? How did he voice concerns with the league? What recourse does he have? I guess if you feel that something was unjustly done, how do you go about fixing that, Coach?
Well, you got a protocol that's established by the SEC. They have a supervisor of officials that used to be Steve Shaw, but he's now the supervisor for the whole country. I don't know who the guy is now, but you call him and you explain to him what the issues were. You send him the videotape, and he gives you an answer. And whether it's whatever it is, there's not much you can do about it. Sometimes they used to have a deal where a guy could be blackballed or be pulled from a game that you would have coming forward, or it could also do something to the whole crew. I know the whole crew that after the Jasper Saints fiasco was supposed to do the championship game the next week, and they were all blackballed for that. So that didn't do me any good. But the point is,
not good enough. They should have been drawn and quartered.
You have a protocol that you turn in the tape, they review it, and then the next week, during the week, the officials have these meetings with everybody, and they go over all the different good calls and bad calls and remind them about things that could be doing better position-wise and all that. And all officials are graded by the coaches. I asked the defensive coaches and the offensive coaches to grade the guys that were involved in their part of the game, and then return those grades in. And then they have a observer who's usually an older guy that used to be an SEC official. He grades them at the site too. And then the supervisor grades them, and then they keep those grades going. At the end of the year, they decide whether they're going to ask them back or not.
I wouldn't ask those guys back.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody's trying to invite them to their podcast.
And I did say I think that Kirby, because each week when you send in the tape, after the Kentucky game, after the Florida game, after the Vanderbilt game, add on Alabama each time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just transitions with no
Yeah,
warning.
yeah.
All of a sudden, you're playing Alabama. You've been watching Jandy clips.
Just want to remind you. Just want to remind you.
The timing of that pass interference penalty was just absolutely horrible, because that's still a 1-score game if Georgia gets the ball back, if that's a field goal for Alabama. And that offense can run a little bit differently with a 1-score game that late.
That was ticky-tack, I think.
And you just had a call on Pickens that was probably worse than that they didn't call. And now they call that one going in.
Yeah, the mugging of Pickens, yeah.
All right. Coach Shepard 10 wants to know, he says, what do you think Monken and the quarterbacks are working on and talking about this week in the meeting room? He said, I'd like to hear your thoughts on what you'd be telling them as well.
That's a good question.
Well, the first day you go over the tape of the previous game, and then from now on, you're working on these 3 days. I'm sure they'll work some on Kentucky and some on some other people, just give them a look at some of the other teams we're playing, in particular Florida. But I think the main thing I would tell our quarterbacks is, go over the mistakes, and then, hey, we're going to go back to fundamentals this week. We're not really worried about a game plan. We're going to do more individual drills. We're going to talk about, stepping up in the pocket. We're going to practice throwing on the run, and we're going to go against our defense, which is really challenging. So you got to be ready to go.
All right. Clock 11 here with a good one that Georgia fans, I think, are dying to know the answer to. He says, who's going to cover Devontae Smith in the SEC championship game and stop him from tearing us apart for a third time? I mean, talk about a kid who has been a thorn in your side, and then you remember the fact that he was a former commit as well. That's just extra devastating. But
kind of like a Derrick Henry.
What do you do with this guy? I mean, how is there a way to contain Devontae Smith? I mean, can he be stopped, I guess?
I mentioned landmines last week, and y'all scoffed.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Well, I mean, they got Smith and Waddle, but I mean, the thing you got to do is, number one, we got to find some way to keep them from being so comfortable in the pocket and throwing all these first and second down passes. I mean, we got to get them third down where you got a better chance. Like I said, we only had 11 situations where they're in third down out of all their plays. So first and second down, we got to do a better job. And the other thing is probably do a little bit more mix-up in our coverage. And we did some mix-up. I thought we did a tremendous job on the crossing routes. For the most part, they didn't hurt us over the top. We had a safety jumping the guy coming across. They hit the long, deep ball. But as far as just the pure crossing routes, which they make their living on, they threw a little underneath throughout the far stall, which was a crossing route. But they just hit us in the seams and hit us, on the 7 route on the corner. And so as far as what we would do, I would say mix up a little bit more on the outside and try to get more pressure inside.
I also think there's an element of pick your poison with Alabama. So like on the Jalen Waddle touchdown, he and Devontae Smith were on the same side of the field and kind of in that stacked formation. And I mean, that's just going to be really hard to defend. That's a good spot for an offensive coordinator to be in. But if you look at the other side of the formation, Miller Forrestall was coming open along the sideline on the right side, and Najee Harris was in the flat and could take it. So I think you feel better that neither of those two are going to be a touchdown from those guys on that side of the field, rather than Waddle catching the ball in space and a tight one-on-one coverage there.
Yeah, and we got confused there too on the
That's
bump.
what I was about to say.
They were stacked, and Stevenson gave him off to Campbell, and just enough indecision there that he got a couple steps on him. So you say, hey, why don't you press them? Well, you press them, they throw the fade. So it's pick your poison, but they're just very good. I mean, there's no question about it. But we did it pretty good against the run early until the fourth quarter, and we did a pretty good job on Harris. But those two guys, if you got two guys catch 17 passes and however how many, I mean, it's the first time any team's ever had two guys with over 150 yards receiving, over 150 yards rushing, and over 400 yards passing in the history of the SEC. In the history.
Against the number one defense. It's not like you're doing this against Vandy. So, yeah. No, that's a good point, Coach. And I was going to point out the same thing to answer the question, how do you cover him? Maybe decide a little bit earlier when they do that stack. Because when Georgia stacked when they put George Pickens out there in the stack, he got open.
Sure.
And then I don't remember Georgia doing it again. So they saw that it worked. So I guarantee when you see them in the SEC championship game, they're going to stack those two again and say, hey, catch them and let's run it fast while they're trying to make that decision. You know, whether it be DJ Daniels or Tariq Stevenson or whoever's trying to pan them off. It's exactly what Ole Miss did to them. Catch them when they're
I want to answer this part too, Jake, on that.
Go for it.
One time, everybody say, how did Monty Rice end up on Waddle? Well, the same thing we tried. We tried a star pressure where we brought Stevenson, and we're playing man coverage, and he ends up inside out and ends up trying to cover him down the middle, and that's what happens. We didn't get to the quarterback. So all the ones that we tried, they had the answers for. I mean, just inexplicably, to me, it was a perfect storm. Everything that they did worked, and we didn't stop it.
When the talent on Georgia's defensive line has to get pressure on the interior, it just has to against a team with tackles that good.
Good point.
I just wanted to say shout out to Monty Rice, because that was a tough position to be put in. I thought he handled it really well.
He was right there.
Yeah, I mean,
again, another 50-50 ball, kind of one that could have been knocked away.
When I saw the matchup initially, when I saw who he was running against, I was like, oh man, but yeah, he was right there. He played that well.
And he did it with a boot. He did it with a boot on his foot too.
Yeah.
Again, don't believe what you read on Twitter, folks.
How did we get this stuff that these guys aren't playing? I mean, it's unbelievable.
Because I don't know who it was, but apparently somebody reported on Twitter that Monty Rice wouldn't be in the game or was out for the game.
All right. This was something I wondered about. I'm glad somebody asked it. You guys may have discussed it on the watch along, but I didn't catch it. So our buddy Chuck Ward wants to know. He said, I thought that was Kyrus Jackson wearing number 30 on kickoffs in the second half. He said, but I didn't understand the change to the unnamed jersey and the number change.
Well,
what was behind that?
The way I understand it is once Kenny Mack went out, you can't have two 10s in the game at the same time or something like that. I think who's the other 10 for us?
Malik Herring.
I think he might have been on the kickoff return team as far as blocking on the kickoff return team. So we had to put a 30 on Kyrus back there so he could run it back. You can maybe look on the film there and check was Malik's on the kickoff team, then that's what we had to do.
And it looked like that jersey a little loose on him. Get him a little tighter fit. He may break one.
Well, I thought maybe they put it on him to make him look like a bum, like a little bit like, oh, who's this guy back here? Don't worry about him.
No name on the back of the jersey. He can't be any good.
Yeah, they gave him the too large jersey with no name on it.
The other theory is that it's just an homage to Tay Crowder, who scored a touchdown this weekend.
Shout out to Tay for his touchdown.
No question, man. That was great.
Love it, Tay.
All right. Blessed Dog with a question for all of us here. He says, I'll be the first to ask it. And he was. He says, do you think JT Daniel plays against Kentucky?
No.
You say no, Roddy?
I said no.
Roddy says no. Dane, what you got? What you think?
No.
Coach, you care to venture a guess on this one?
I don't really know. I think you got to look at Dwan hard.
That's my reason.
He would be the first guy you'd look at if you're going to make a change, but I don't see him playing against them based on what I've heard. But what I've heard from Kirby publicly, I haven't asked him privately because it's none of my business.
You could do that and tell us, and we won't tell anybody.
Well, a nice follow-up to that one. Willie from Warner Robins wants to know, is Dwan Mathis still a viable option at quarterback?
Well, that's why I said no, because I think if you're going to bring in a different quarterback, the guy that won the job, and who could take off. Again, I think Dane makes a great point when the offensive line is coming along, but it's maybe not where you want it to be yet. And you need a guy who we saw that against Auburn. You saw it against Tennessee. Sometimes you got a busted play, you get busted protection, you have to take off with your legs. Dwan Mathis can do that. I don't think you have that situation right now in a JT Daniels, but Dwan can fly. He beat out Stetson Bennett for the starting job. Maybe a few weeks in, a little more practice. If you get up on Kentucky, which is not guaranteed, Kentucky's good, I think the next guy you bring in is Dwan Mathis. And that's why I'm not saying anything against JT Daniels. I just think your next choice is a guy who gives you the same option to run as Stetson Bennett does. And that's Dwan Mathis. I think he's still viable.
Let me ask you.
There's a parallel here too, but back to 2017, 2017, Eason won the job head and shoulders over Fromm.
No question.
There wasn't even any question about it. Then he gets hurt. Fromm starts doing good. Eason couldn't get back on the field. That's what's happened with Dwan here. He won the job, but Stetson's done some really good things for our team. And Kirby knows we got a good defense and a good kicking game. So that's the way it looks to me.
I want to ask you, Coach, and this wasn't one of the questions, but I think it's something that people will be wondering about. You pulled Dwan in that first game. You give Stetson the chance to come in. I know that, you got to be resilient, short memory guy, but realistically, how do you build that guy back up, after you pulled him and then, it's been another guy's show for a while? How do you kind of get into the psyche of Dwan Mathis
good question.
And kind of make him reassure him that, hey, look, this is back to you now?
Well, it was hard to do when you're getting ready for a game because you don't really share the reps that much. But this next week here,
yes,
these 3 practices, I could see him getting a lot of reps. And we know what, and maybe even JT too, because we know what getting back to the spring, to the fall practice, they knew what Bennett could do. And they let those other guys really work hard with the first and second team. So I think we'll still see Bennett do a lot of things here in practice, but you can probably see Dwan get more chances to see what he can do.
How many more questions we got?
Just a couple here.
Before you get on that, I want to give a shout out to Ronnie Brown at DR Construction and Maintenance. They service Liberty County, Long County, Bryan County. Ronnie Brown, huge Georgia fan, big guy that, he's also supported our website for years. He always has a question on here. I said, hey, you got a question this week? He said, no, just tell the Dog fans we aren't done yet.
There you go.
And he's right, because, that became the Richard LeCount mantra during that recruiting year, when they just kept getting big name after big name after big name to land that number 1 recruiting class. You just pointed out Georgia's hot on the trail. They just picked up Amarius Mims, number 2 player in the nation with a chance to be a number 1. Mims is how much I'd love to have him.
I don't think he's got a chance to be number 1. I think Corey's that good.
I'm just saying this was.
It's
from Mike Farrell's words.
It's a premium position. Don't get me wrong. Offensive tackle, but Corey is.
No,
Corey's something special.
I get you. I'm just saying this was from our Mike Farrell's own words. He said he has a chance to be number 1.
Yeah.
Maybe a 1% chance, but still a chance,
So you're telling me there's a chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but he says Georgia's not done. He wouldn't tell me what it means, but I think that means 2 different things. I think they're going to remain hot on the recruiting trail, and you get a setback with Alabama, but I definitely think Georgia can win out the rest of the games and face them again.
All right, ZXBY 140 over here. Speaking of recruiting, he says, with Mims committed, I assume, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the UGA has done it offensive line, quarterback, tight end. How many more receivers and running backs do you see them taking? What are your thoughts and feelings on who might fill out the class at those positions? Personally, I think you are done at those spots. I think Mims was the cherry on top of your offensive line class. I think everybody else is pretty solid.
And Micah Morris might become a 5-star. He was on the list of possible 5-stars.
Yeah. Micah's in the mix. You obviously Dylan Fairchild's a guy that you feel good about. Jared Wilson flipped back, so I don't think you got to worry about that a second time. You're done there. You got Brock Bowers at tight end. You got Brock Vandegrift at quarterback, so nothing else you really need much there. I think receiver and running back is an interesting situation for them, mostly because my feeling going into this year was that it will be 2 receivers, and I think I still go with that. Now, the concern is
only 2.
Yes, only 2, and you've got 2 in Adonai Mitchell and Jackson Meeks. I think you've got to continue to watch the Jackson Meeks situation, not because I feel like it's shaky to Georgia, but we know that he's had a knee problem in the past. I know that he's missed a couple of games this year as well. So keep evaluating that. If you feel like maybe it's a risk, maybe you take a 3rd guy. I don't know.
Makes sense.
As far as running back, I do think that there's a chance that you see a second running back in this class. The name I continue to watch out for is Donovan Edwards of Michigan, the four-star running back. I think that he's Georgia's target, has been Georgia's target all along, the better part of 8-10 months now probably. It may come down to how Zamir and James end up handling the rest of the season and if they decide to move on. I'm not saying that that would take a spot from Donovan, but it might be a little crowded situation in that case. Now we have
it would affect his decision.
Sure, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
So.
No, I'm saying it wouldn't. I don't think that Georgia would say we don't have a spot.
Okay. Yeah.
Now the other consideration is, and a lot of people have asked about this one. Amari Daniels came out and has apparently put Georgia and Texas A&M as his top two options. I'm leaning Texas A&M there. That's a James Coley special. Central, Miami. Come on, that's I think that's the case. It's been the case for a while.
Damn you, Coley.
In my opinion. Now, like I said, we'll continue to watch that one. But if that is officially the top two for him, I do give Texas A&M the edge. I think most people have there for 8 minutes. So,
well, that's why I think because you didn't ask me to fly to Miami and eat tamales down there.
I need to go though. So,
No.
What kind of style is Amari Daniels?
Amari Daniels he's one of those. He's a lot more in the James Cook mold. He's a 5'9" guy, scat back, the guy who can play out in the slot some if you need him to. He's not going to be your bruiser. He's not going to be your guy who's necessarily in there, banging the middle of the tackles. Now, he can do that. He's capable, but I think he's better used as a guy who, you can turn into a bit of an offensive weapon. All right, let's see. One more. Let's see if we got one more.
While you're
all right, Sick'em Dogs here with a good one, and I think I know what Dane's.
How long has Sick'em Dogs been on the board?
I think I know what Dane's gonna ask on this one or answer on this one. He says it's pretty clear offense wins championships, and with elite passing quarterback specifically. Realistically, when will Georgia have an elite quarterback? Dane, when do you think that is, buddy?
I don't think that. I mean, all right. So first of all.
You and your blind comparisons.
There aren't many elite quarterbacks, period, every year. You're talking 3 or 4 that can really be a difference maker, game changing, anything on the field. There just aren't many of those every year. And I'm talking the Trevor Lawrences, Justin Fields, Joe Burrows. And Joe Burrow wasn't that the whole time either. Let's get that straight. That sometimes that does develop, and it happens for, flash in the pan for 1 year with the right coach, right situation, great receivers, all that good stuff. Brock Vandagriff may turn into that. I'm really excited to see what he can do at Georgia. He also might not turn into that. I mean, he's a high school kid right now, so that's what we'll see. I think he's got potential to. I really do.
I was waiting on Brock Vandagriff. That was. I knew that was what he would say. So. I think that you've got a chance to have a guy with. I'll say that you've got elite upside, in my opinion, in Dwan Matthews. I really do believe that. I still believe that.
Yep.
I think that the weapons that he brings to the table are what you see a lot of modern college football based around. He's able to get out there and scramble. He's got the big arm. I think if you can get this kid comfortable and get him in there, the upside there is there for him to get into that territory. And let's not forget, people mentioned this, Urban Meyer recruited the kid to play quarterback. He seems to know a thing or two about him. So I trust that. All right, I think that's it for questions today, but we did get some good ones. So thanks everybody for sending them in. Make sure you're to always hit us up on Twitter or over on the message boards at UGAsports.com if you want to get your question in.
Yeah, we're going to have a lot more coverage. We've got the Kirby press conference, got a story up about the quarterbacks at UGAsports.com right now. You can go read Kirby's comments and watch the video. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel that you're watching it here. Hit that little bell thing so it notifies you when we're up and running. So then we have to move it from a 12 to a 12:30, you know about it. Shout out to Classic City Eats for the free lunch today. Shout out to Athens Ford, Europi Academia, Aaron Overhead Doors, Masada Leather, and DR Construction Maintenance down in Liberty County for sponsoring our show. We appreciate it, and we will talk to you folks next Tuesday at noon. Everybody take care.